Yes, me and Zoom lady are gonna have to entertain the 10 amazing people here. Yes, all right, so let's get started. Oh, and feel free to like turn your cameras on and stuff. Like it's really nice to see people. So yeah, awesome. Yes, this meeting is being recorded. Alrighty, so let me see if I can get my screen set up. Oops. All right. Present. Oh, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties right now.
I feel you, man.
Alrighty, can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, solid. And oh shoot, hang on. Don't want to go forward. Anyways, this is today's agenda. I'm just gonna move this over to my separate monitor. Sorry about this, guys. Just give me 1 second. Um. But yeah, if you guys want to like interrupt me at any time, like please feel free to go for it. Like, not stopping you whatsoever. Um, yeah. Alrighty. So, just almost done. Alrighty. So, I'm going to get started now. If I'm looking at present. All right. Can you guys see me?
Yeah, you're good, man. Don't worry.
Awesome. Alrighty. So, hey guys, to the 10 of you that are here, thank you so much for joining me on your Tuesday evening. It's really nice to see you guys. And yeah, so today we're going to be kicking off Challenge 5, and then we're going to go into some interactive virtual activities, which are going to be very situational and very sort of dramatic. I think most of our chapter leaders are here, but for those of you that aren't, for those of you that are a chapter member, um, our wonderful chapter leaders came up with a wicked set of scenarios to sort of play through today. So yeah, keep in mind these are all like HR scenarios, so it gets pretty funky. Anyways, before I start, I'm just gonna get into a little bit more of a situational sort of theme. Can you guys see my background? Yeah. So
Yeah.
the challenge 5, navigating team challenges. So before we start though, I would like to kick off this workshop with a wild world update time. All right. And by the way, this is my state of the art studio. If you guys can see my studio, it's amazing. I have like 6 monitors behind me. Yeah. Alrighty. So the biggest sort of thing that happened this week was Reddit users versus Wall Street. You guys might have heard about this. Essentially, Elon Musk was sort of going off on it. He said game stonk, and yeah, so it's pretty crazy that a bunch of individual traders were able to gang up on against multi-billion-dollar hedge funds and really sort of yeah, really sort of skew the markets in some sense. But for those of you that don't really know what stocks are all about, or what exactly happened before you saw it on TikTok or wherever you saw it, this is sort of what happened. So essentially, stocks were being shorted. And just to give you some sort of context, when you're shorting a stock, all right, pretend you're some sort of hedge fund manager, you're actually just borrowing a stock from a brokerage, and you sort of pay. You're just borrowing a stock. Like think of it as like a IOU. And what you do is you actually go and sell that stock on the exchange market, the stock market, and the stock market will give you $50. Now you believe that the value of the stock is going to go down in value. So you actually sell that stock and you get $50. Now, if the stock price drops, the understanding is that you'd go and buy the stock again at a much lower price, let's say $20 for this instance, and you keep the profits between the 20 and the 50. So when you sold it for 50, you bought it back at 20, and then you have to give it back to the brokerage with some sort of operating fee. So this is usually over the course of some sort of 1 month period of time or whatever it is. So hedge funds in this sort of situation would make $20 to make it very sort of simple. And this is sort of to believe that this particular stock that they're trying to short is going to go down in value. Now, this all works if the stock actually goes down in value. If the stock goes up in value, the hedge fund actually has to buy back the stock at whatever that price might be, and that's where that's where it becomes very risky to short a stock. Now, here's where we can insert our wonderful Wall Street bets. Wall Street bets is essentially a bunch of Reddit users. It's a Reddit page, sorry, consistent of a bunch of Reddit users who came together to sort of, in some sense, gang up on hedge funds and really explain how a bunch of stocks that are being shorted quite excessively are actually are being shorted very excessively. So because they have this information on what stocks are being shorted so excessively and in large magnitudes, a bunch of traders just came together and started buying a bunch of stocks. So I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but on this Yahoo Finance sort of graph, we see a lot more people buying, and that's what's spiking up that price. Now, a bunch of these hedge funds, sorry, are quite panicky about are quite panicked about the fact that they're expecting the stock to go down, like GameStop for example, but in reality, it's actually going up. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know if you guys can see, but literally in like a few hours time, this stock went from like barely like a few dollars to like over $417, which is like crazy. Like their business models haven't changed. And this wasn't only GameStop, it was like BlackBerry and a few others that were on there. So as you can see, all of these this entire like momentum and this like incredible sort of like roller coaster ride, you could say, really put Wall Street in a bad position. Whereas Wall Street bet users are making a killer amount of money. Now, this is where the meme man and stonks comes into play. I don't know if you guys understood what Elon Musk said in that tweet, but essentially a stonk is a mischaracterization of the word stock, and sort of used to indicate how a stock either surges or falls in price really quickly. So you just have meme man over here, and yeah. Anyways, the other interesting thing is the date today's date. So we got February the 2nd, 2020 plus plus. Now, when I was actually thinking about this, I forgot we were in 2021 and I just pulled a hack the North thing. So 2020 plus plus. Yeah, my mind was pretty blown, but yeah. Anyways, uh, thanks for listening to my laughable humor over there. But let's get started with
Laughable.
yeah, you know what, Josh? That voice is pretty laughable, to be honest.
I
But anyways,
agree.
alrighty, let's get started with challenge 5. So essentially, what we want to sort of drill is the understanding of how to navigate team dynamics and really working together cohesively. Now I see some messages in the chat. I'm just gonna take a quick look. Um, uh, yeah, okay. So just a bunch of stocks. Anyways, so what is sort of the difference between working in as individually versus working in a team, large team, small team, whatever it might be? And the real key differentiator is that you have more control and agility when you're by yourself. You really get to specialize in one very specific sort of task or industry or whatever it might be, and you get to support and you have to support yourself along the way. And these are typically companies that are sole proprietorships or small mom and pop shops that operate very in a very small sort of organization. And that's sort of like it makes sense to work independently when you're in a very sort of small setup. Now, in a team setting, however, there's a lot more shared accountability. You have to manage the team dynamics very carefully, but the advantage of working in a team overall is that you get to work faster and you get to divide and conquer up the work. Now, there's this equation that I came across in one of the blogs, which was pretty interesting, which is team potential minus outside interference is equal to a high functioning team. And what does that really mean? Well, team potential refers to like purpose. Why is your team coming together to work on that specific thing, right? And then the second thing is skill sets. What do you guys have, when collectively speaking, in order to really, really, really solve a problem effectively? Why are you guys the it team? And psychological safety, right? If something were to go wrong, are you guys able to work together to bring yourselves up together, right? Like that's very important. Like there's some teams that do a really good job in sort of mitigating risk and ensuring that they're able to navigate even the toughest and wildest of times. Like I don't know if you guys remember, but early in the pandemic, a lot of companies ended up going like they ended up bellying up because they weren't able to, because the stock market crashed, the economy took a complete wild turn. These things are quite they're quite sort of sudden, and being able to work as a team together and really sort of leveraging each other's strength is very important to create that sense of psychological safety. But even with a sense of purpose, a bunch of skill sets, and even that psychological safety, what's really important, and this relates to physics actually, is the team's ability to, you know, have a certain velocity, direction, acceleration, and position. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, every team needs to have a direction, in terms of where they're planning to go and where they want to go, where they in terms of, and where they want to head, and what problem they really want to solve, and having that direction, working at a pace where they're able to solve that problem effectively is very important to understanding how to work together. Gobble gobble. Okay. And yeah, and sometimes, like, when you're working together as a team initially, you really need to make sure that you're working very quickly, but at the same time you're not accelerating too fast to the point where you're sort of tripping up and making mistakes. And that's very important. Some teams work incredibly fast, but they leave behind the small details. And that being said, like, position. And where are you guys situated right now, and how will that take you, 1 month from now, 10 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now? What is that going to look like? Having that sense of direction is very, very, very important. And that's where like physics comes into play, because a lot of, external forces can sort of disrupt the the direction that which your team is heading. And that sort of relates to outside interference. Now, funny enough, although it says outside interference, a lot of problems actually originate from internally. Things like pushing your goals, right? Like if you were to, if you wanted to meet a certain target and then you worked halfway through, and then you said, what, I think we can push ourselves even further. It's very hard to sort of work towards a target that's consistently moving forward, because it's very hard. You don't get that sense of reward. Right? That's something like pushing goals. Changes in leadership, when different people are being put into these high responsibility, high accountability leadership roles, it causes a lot of change in the team dynamics, which is why it's very important to be consistent and sort of be the best leader. But more than being a good leader, you need to have a good sense of followership. Right? That sort of eliminates that outside interference component. And the other thing is like interpersonal friction. You know, do two individuals that work on a team, do they have some sort of friction, or are they sort of unable to get along well with each other? These are all things that could sort of hinder the team's potential and reduce the productivity of a team. But that being said, understanding these sort of issues and being able to address them effectively is very important to staying productive and staying consistent in the types of problems that you want to solve. Now, moving forward, what's the difference between a group and a team? Essentially, groups are connected socially. You can characterize them by size, connections, interpersonal connections. They even might have some sort of individual leadership or accountability, but each person is working in a sort of solo sort of setting. Each other's skills are complementary, but they don't always fit in like a jigsaw puzzle. They might share information between each other, but it's a group. It's very, very informal. Now, a team, however, is a very unique group where people rely on each other, and they're very interdependent on each other in order to get a collective goal or solve a collective problem. Now, using your skills and the skills of others is very, very important to being in a team, because you need to work together and, in order to sort of tackle a large problem. Now, you might have some sort of shared leadership, but you're still accountable for yourself. And that's very important in a team setting. If you're not unable to be accountable, it's very hard to, move forward together. You guys will be encouraged to solve problems together, which is why working in a team is, always very motivating, because, each other's sort of progress motivates you to, progress yourself individually. But oftentimes, the most challenging part of being in a team, or even in a group for that matter, as opposed to being by yourself, is conflict management and, resolving those conflicts. So that's sort of what this workshop and the next week's workshop we're going to look into a little bit more. Now, there's three types of teams, and I'm not really a sports watcher or whatever, but you could sort of relate these types of teams to sports. So we have a functional team, a hierarchy team, and an organic team. Now, a functional team is very similar to baseball. You are on a team, but you don't work as a team. And what that really means is that, each player or each sort of teammate has a specific function. And this sort of system was used when developing assembly lines, and it was really easy and really simple to implement, which was why it was so successful in transforming the Industrial Revolution. Then there's a hierarchy team, which in the picture, as you can see, is relating to a football. You might have some sort of leader. Like in football, you have a quarterback that really pushes forward the team. And the team is like working together strategically in order to make sure that they're able to, move forward against the opposing resistance. So, but at the same time, members work independently, right? But they're still dependent on each other and the coordination of each other so that they're able to get a task done effectively. Now, the hierarchy team works pretty well because it's very flexible and it works when tasks need to be done very quickly. And initially speaking, a lot of startups typically adopt this sort of generic hierarchy team, but really they operate quite equally in that, there's not really there's one leader on paper, but really everyone is sort of working together to, do sales, do marketing, do whatever it might be. And then the last sort of team we have is called an organic team. And this is actually the strongest type of team simply because each person is able to leverage the strengths and weaknesses and adjust to the weaknesses of each other. And what I mean by that is, when even if you look at a game like basketball or tennis, tennis duels, right? There's no sort of fixed position, and um, each person or each player has a very has a preferred role that they go to or they sort of associate with, and that really helps them to, work together to solve a specific type of problem. Um, and that being said, sorry, I'm just going to connect my laptop. And that being said, it requires a lot of solo discipline. But having that individual discipline results in a lot of team synergy. And what that means is exactly what I said before. You're able to leverage the team's strengths and weaknesses and adjust to each other's weaknesses. And the beauty in that is you guys understand each other so well that you're able to work cohesively. And it's so unified that like you guys are able to work as one driving force. The only downside with organic teams is it's very hard to manage them, and when once you start to get a lot more people. um, but typically speaking, a lot of smaller companies will tend to resonate with the organic team or the hierarchy team or a combination of the three, to be honest. Now, taking a look at disagreements, team conflicts take place most often when there are disagreements, and disagreements most often take place in the brainstorming stages. And keep in mind, when we're talking about disagreements, it's not necessarily bad to have disagreements. Um, it's really bad when they become into a conflict where the team isn't able to work on creating that solution that they were trying to work toward. It becomes it becomes a problem when the entire ball stops rolling. And that's sort of where we need to address these resolution strategies, really work together to make sure that you can avoid or sort of compromise to work move forward from the problem. Now, looking at brainstorming, a good sort of way to make sure that you don't run into these conflicts, or at least reduce the number of conflicts you run into during these brainstorming strategies, is to first of all not fall in love with the idea, but to fall in love with the problem. By falling in love with the idea, you really associate yourself personally to that specific idea. So I don't know if you guys have worked in a team before, but I remember in some of the extracurriculars that I worked in, this was our yeah, in some of the extracurriculars I worked in, some of the ideas had a very, very, very strong backing by an individual, even though that they knew that it was not necessarily the best solution to the problem, but really it was an emotional sort of decision making process that really leads to that ownership, and the idea that you can't really let go of that idea, of that solution. Now, I don't know if you guys have participated in first robotics, but one of the first things they say after like the kickoff starts is to not fall in love with the idea, but to fall in love with the problem. Now, keeping that in mind is very important to work by yourself to ideate ideas and instead of working together as a team. Because when you work together as a team, I don't know if there's only one person talking at a time, which is very, very, very inefficient. You guys work very slow. And at the same time, it's like when one person sort of gives an idea, it's very hard to build off of that without either thinking about it or without having it shot down by someone else. And you don't want to have ideas being shot down all the time because it's very unhealthy to the team conflict management. So work by yourself to ideate ideas and just make sure that like you're able to present those ideas to your teammates in a very sort of effective, comical manner, which will enable you to really understand the full depth at which of which the idea is effective or not. Now, when you're sort of validating the efficacy of your ideas, it's a really good idea to use. Sorry, I mention ideas a lot, but it's a very good strategy to use pros and cons charts to understand both sides of the solution. This really helps people to eliminate that emotional bias aspect and to disassociate themselves from the ideas and really sort of understand what people are seeing from both sides. Staying committed, collaborative, and consistent will really, again, help to engage the fact that you're a really good team player and really fostering that environment where all team members are able to meet goals collectively, learn from each other, and just grow, individually and as a team. Now, when you're designing an effective team, a good team has project boundaries in place. They have a really good sense of team composition. Uh, and what I mean by team composition is they have task roles that differentiate between each person, and they're sort of rotate person to person each time. This is sort of like a contributor. Then we have relational roles and boundary spanning roles, which really refer to the fact that you have a diverse set of team compositions that are able to help you work together as a team, and you're able to target each other's strengths and weaknesses effectively and in a very organized manner. Now, having a reward system is very, very important. I don't know if you guys know this, but one of the really effective things to get people to stop procrastinating is to actually build some sort of individual reward system. This is really helpful in terms of understanding that a job doesn't feel like a chore, and there's a real sense in seeing that value in spending your time on something. So having a really good reward system will really push your team to strive for that productivity piece. Again, having smart goals, I think you guys might have heard of this before. A lot of banks use this. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and team bound goals. These are really important in terms of setting realistic goals that you guys can work towards over a span of time. And yeah, and you just want to make sure that your team is very value oriented, and not necessarily skill oriented. Value oriented means that you guys are able to agree on the core principles and the core foundation that you guys are sort of building up on. Hey, Kevin. But at the same time, you guys work together to complement each other's skills. Um, you guys are able to complement each other's skills and really work towards building a engaging environment. Now, again, a not so good team is it's quite simple to understand. You just have to negate all of these good team criterions, but really not having a formal sense of roles and responsibilities really leads to a not so good team really quickly. Um, at the same time, members might make self-oriented roles, things like, I nominate myself for becoming the leader, right, with no sort of discussion about it, and there's no democratic process to engage in the fact that, maybe um that's funny. Yeah, just to make, if there's no democratic process to, nominate a leader, it's very hard to ensure that the person that's leading the group is actually effective for the role or not. Now, you might have recognition seekers, dominators, blockers, people who really just leverage their ego to the point where they just want something that's shining on their resume, not necessarily want to contribute to the team goals and objectives, and not reflecting on the team objectives and activities on a regular basis. That can really hinder a team's growth. So really making sure that you guys have an idea of this is very important when any sort of team that you work in. It doesn't matter if it's, in school teams, university teams, or extracurriculars. Like, you're going to use these skills for the long run. Now, it's really important to reflect on your team's work habits, right? Like, what do you want to accomplish? What type of team do you want to be? These questions are really, really important to making sure that you're staying true to yourselves and ensuring that you're able to work together in a very unified fashion. And going back to those team strategies, what sort of goal do you have in mind when you're working together? Like, what do you guys want to do to complement each other's skills, each other's energies, and each other's time that you're spending towards just working, right? What do you guys want to accomplish? And oftentimes people don't understand, especially when they're starting businesses, is, a business is not necessarily just a bunch of land and capital. There's also labor that's involved, whether it's manual labor or skilled labor, right? People are involved in this process. And, being able to manage people is very, very important, because that's really how you develop a sense of followership and making sure that you guys are able to grow together and stay together and contribute towards the problem that you guys set out to solve in the beginning stages. Now, do you guys have any questions? I know that was a bit of a ramble. Um, but yeah, like, do you guys have any questions about sort of what we just covered or anything?
Yeah, I sort of was wondering, touching on the point that you made about like recognition seeking, that how could you tell if somebody's like sort of headed towards that attitude, and how do you deal with this kind of people, and how do you prevent it?
That's a good question. So it's very hard. Oftentimes, like, when people are recognition seekers, they do it out of their own self interest. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone should grow equally, and everyone should get an equal amount of recognition. Um, but really having a democratic process, right? So, for example, if you guys are, you guys come together for the first time and you guys are working on this idea after you've done your brainstorming and whatever, it's time to nominate a leader, right? Watching for social cues and really looking at observing how people are reacting to this leadership position. Now, some people might on paper be very, very competent to be a leader, like, based on the skills they have, but maybe they're not good at, you know, leading a team in general. They might have the technical skills to do so, but they may not have the soft skills to do so, and that may not make a good leader overall. So really making sure that you have a criteria set out in place to nominate the leader that fits most of the roles, not all the roles, but just most of the roles, and is able to gauge what each sub team or cross functional team is able to do. That's sort of a strategy that you could implement. But to really seek them out, like, it's very hard. Like, you have to be very open with each other and really sort of put yourself in a vulnerable place to say, like, what, I think I should be a leader because of ABCD reason. Make your point heard, and still engage in that democratic fashion. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no.
Would it be more advantageous in some scenarios if you didn't nominate a leader and just kind of worked on the same level, or would it be better for, more structural leadership?
I guess it depends what you're trying to achieve, right? Like most often than not, it is very good to have a leader because you can conform to that structure, right? Even if it's not the most effective structure, having a structure or having some structure is better than having no structure, right? So I think there is a lot of situations where you could engage, you can have a leader, but typically speaking, in the initial stages where people don't really know what they're trying to do as a team, that's when you don't really need a leader. You work together to set out those tasks and ensure that each person is responsible for meeting some sort of deliverable. Um, but beyond that, it's always good to have some sort of leader. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Yeah, no worries. Do you guys have any other questions? No, yes, no. Alrighty. So, well, I hope that was at least somewhat useful to you guys. So now we're gonna play some sort of a game, um, a wicked game between all of us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna play a wicked game. So you'll be organized into breakout rooms, and you guys can split into rooms of two. I think because we only have 10 people, I feel like we can, chapter leaders. What do you think? Like, should based on this scenarios that we came up with, should like how many people should we do per? I don't know. I guess team or whatever.
Well, there's only 10 people in the meeting anyway, so it's gonna be kind of hard to like group these people off.
Yeah, okay. Tell you what. So including me, there's 11 that I see here.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's 11 people. Let's I'll just make 5 breakout rooms, right? So we can have like we'll have pairs in each sort of each room, sorry. And that will, let's see here. Yeah, so it'll be a kind of simple thing. It'll be a simple activity. You know what? I'll make 3 rooms because why not? Let participants choose their own room. All right, so you can go to whichever room you guys would like. But we're going in each room that I'm going to post a document with a bunch of sort of scenarios that you guys could role play, and then all you guys have to do is once you're in your room, just organize yourselves into teams that are split evenly and have some sort of friendly debate against the other team based on the scenario. What do you think? Good? Yes, no? Alrighty. So are you guys able to see are you guys able to see the breakout room button? I opened them up.
Yeah, we can. It's right beside reactions.
Awesome. Alrighty. Okay, so let's see here. Where was that document that I had earlier? I'm looking here. Alrighty. Awesome. So you can just go into whichever breakout room if you can see the button. If you don't see the button, just stay back and I can assign you to the room.
Sammy,
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks.
That's good. You wanna have some fun with this debate? I want to see your debating skills.
Honestly, I feel like I'd be. I wasn't here for much of the material, Like I
It's
feel like I'd be.
you covered all of this in your business class, so I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, see, that's assuming I've been studying.
You'll be
I've really
fine.
been paying attention. We've been doing like personality types, and like good
Oh, yeah?
teams, EQ and IQ. Like I don't know. It's nothing that really interested me,
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's all right. All right. So I've moved people to breakout rooms. So join whichever break. Oh yeah, join the rooms that you're assigned to, and then we'll go from there. Sound good? Alrighty.
Entire thing, so I have no idea what's going on.
Oh my god, it's being recorded.
Hi, Sammy.